You've entered the story they tried to bury. What you hear next was never meant to be found. This is Grim Whisper Studios. When the Whitaker family moved into their new home in Vermont, they weren't expecting much. The house was old, built in 1897, and had sat unsold for almost 7 years. It was quiet. Too quiet, Marlene had said, half laughing as she stepped through the creaking doorway for the first time. Her husband Daniel, a practical man with little patience for superstition, chalked it all up to rural charm. But their 7-year-old son, Noah, immediately gravitated to something no one else noticed. A small wooden puppet sitting on the dusty top shelf of the attic closet. It was hand-carved, the kind of thing you'd expect to see behind glass in a European museum. The puppet had cracked wooden joints, strings that were dry and frayed, and 2 glassy black eyes that didn't reflect light. It didn't smile. It didn't frown. It just stared. "Can I keep him?" Noah asked, cradling the puppet like it was a kitten. He already had a name picked out. "His name is Mr. Mumble." They laughed, even Daniel. But Marlene paused. There was something unnerving about the way Noah spoke to it, like it had whispered the name into his ear. That night, Marlene heard creaking footsteps on the hardwood hallway. She opened the door, thinking Noah was up. But the hallway was empty. Only the puppet was sitting just outside her door, upright like it had been placed there. She didn't remember Noah bringing it to bed. When she went to put it back, its limbs shifted, not loosely, but with resistance, like muscle, like something tensing inside the wood. She told herself it was imagination, old wood, air pressure, but she didn't sleep that night. And by morning, Noah had drawn something on the walls with a red crayon. Circles, lines, symbols she didn't recognize. When asked what they were, he smiled softly. "Mr. Mumble showed me how." The symbols Noah had drawn weren't random. Marlene didn't know why, but something in her gut told her they meant something. She took pictures of them before scrubbing the red crayon off the wall. Noah watched from his bed, cradling Mr. Mumble in his arms, his head tilted slightly to the left, just like the puppets. That day, she emailed the pictures to a friend from college who worked in museum anthropology. The reply came hours later, and it was brief. "These resemble pre-Christian European sigils. I don't know what they mean, but they're not innocent doodles. Where did you find them?" She didn't reply. That night, Daniel came home late from work. The power had gone out on his way in, an unexplained outage that affected only their street. Inside the house, all was still. Too still. "Noah?" he called, stepping into the dark hallway with his phone flashlight. "Marlene?" He found his wife in the kitchen, standing completely still. The stove burners were on, glowing blue flames lit with nothing on top. All 4 of them. "Marlene, what the hell are you doing?" he said, rushing forward. She blinked, confused, like she'd just woken up. I don't know. I was in the living room, I think. Then I was here." Upstairs, something thumped. Hard. They both looked up. Daniel grabbed a kitchen knife. Marlene followed as he climbed the stairs. The sound came again. Thud, 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 like someone dropping a body against the wooden floor. The door to Noah's room was open, and inside he sat upright in bed, his head bowed. Mr. Mumble sat in his lap. There were claw marks on the walls, deep splintering scratches running from floor to ceiling. Daniel flicked on the flashlight and froze. The puppet's head turned toward him, slow, deliberate, not Noah's hand. The puppet turned itself, and from Noah's lips came a whisper, a language they didn't recognize, a chant, a rhythm, like something being summoned. Daniel snatched the puppet from Noah's lap and hurled it across the room. It hit the wall with a dull crack, one of its arms snapping off. Noah screamed, not in pain, but fury. a deep, guttural howl no 7-year-old should be capable of. "You heard him!" Noah shrieked, his voice echoing unnaturally in the small bedroom. "He chose me!" Daniel backed away, shaken. Marlene tried to pull Noah into her arms, but he shoved her with a force that knocked her flat to the floor. That night, Daniel locked the puppet in the basement crawlspace. "It's a toy," he muttered. "We're not going to let a goddamn toy control our house." Noah didn't speak for the rest of the evening. He sat in silence at the dinner table, head bowed, drawing again, this time on the tablecloth. The same symbols, but this time, blood red. Marlene later found her sewing shears missing from the drawer, and tiny droplets of blood on Noah's fingertips. At 2:13 a.m., the smoke alarm went off. Daniel leapt from bed, rushing to the stairs, only to find the basement door wide open. Smoke curled out slowly from below. When he descended, the crawl space was ablaze, but the fire burned in a perfect circle. The puppet sat in the center of it, untouched, as if the flames bent around it in reverence. Daniel froze. Then the flames died in an instant, snuffed out, like someone had inhaled them. Total darkness swallowed the space, and he heard something crawl behind him, clicking limbs, like wooden joints. He turned and saw nothing, but something whispered near his ear. Not in English. When Daniel climbed out, the puppet was gone. Upstairs, Noah stood in the hallway, smiling faintly. His pupils were too large, too black. "He said you can't burn him," he whispered. "You're his now, too." The next morning, Daniel packed a bag and drove Noah to St. Mary's Children's Hospital for a psych evaluation. But as soon as they stepped inside, Noah clutched his chest and screamed, "He's burning! You're killing him!" Nurses rushed to help, but Noah collapsed, convulsing violently. His eyes rolled back, lips foaming. They admitted him immediately. The official diagnosis was psychogenic seizure triggered by emotional trauma, but Daniel knew better. That night, Marlene stayed home alone. She heard the sounds again, creaking floorboards, whispers in the vents, tapping behind the walls. When she followed them to the attic, she found something that made her freeze in place. The puppet had returned. It was sitting upright in the same closet Noah found it in. But this time, it was surrounded by small offerings, animal bones, burnt matches, and a child's tooth. And carved into the wood beneath it, as if done with a knife, was a phrase she didn't understand. "I am the Hollow." Marlene ran, locking the attic behind her. Meanwhile, Daniel sat in the hospital parking lot, staring at a printed email his friend had just sent. A linguistic analysis of the phrase, "the Hollow." It wasn't a name, it was a title, an ancient one, a being used in pre-Christian rituals, a spiritless husk used as a vessel for wandering entities, and the puppet was designed to summon such a thing. At 3:07 a.m., Daniel received a call from the hospital. Noah was missing from his bed. The room had no windows, no security footage, no sign of a break-in, just a trail of red crayon markings leading out of the room and ending at the foot of the hospital chapel. Inside, scrawled in blood on the altar, were the same symbols Marlene had tried to scrub from their walls, and in the center, a single wooden arm. Marlene didn't sleep. She waited by the attic door with a carving knife in hand, listening. The puppet hadn't moved since she found it, but its presence felt like a weight on the house. Every corner was heavy, every shadow too still. Then at 4:33 a.m., the doorbell rang. Daniel stood there soaked in cold sweat, his hands trembling, and beside him was Noah, or something that looked like him. The boy's eyes were wrong, glossy, dead, as if something had slipped behind them and pulled the skin of her son over itself. He didn't speak. He just walked past her, straight up the stairs to his room. Daniel whispered everything, about the chapel, about the puppet, about the hollow. There were no cameras, no windows, no exits, "They don't know how he got out," he muttered. "They don't even think he left. But he was just there, standing outside the chapel, holding the puppet's other arm." Marlene started to cry. "That's not our son." And deep down, Daniel already knew she was right. They didn't sleep. At sunrise, they called Father Lenny, an old priest who had once helped track occult activity in Maine during the early 90s. They didn't know who else to trust. When he arrived, he didn't ask questions. He simply walked upstairs, entered Noah's room, and came out 5 minutes later, pale, his hands shaking. "That thing in your house, it's wearing your child." He showed them a page from his old journal, a sketch of a puppet, identical to Mr. Mumble. He called it a marioneta del vacío, puppet of the void, a vessel, a gate. "I've seen this once before," he whispered. "It doesn't want your house or your son. It wants roots. It wants to spread." Down the hall, Noah's door creaked open on its own, and inside the room a second voice, deeper, layered, inhuman, whispered through the crack in the wood. "You're too late." Father Lenny placed rosaries across the hallway and lit black candles, muttering prayers in Latin none of them recognized. But the air was already shifting. The house felt like it was breathing, walls subtly flexing, floorboards pulsing with a sick, organic rhythm beneath their feet. Down the hall, Noah, or the thing inside him, stood motionless at the top of the stairs. His mouth was moving, but no sound came out. Just silence, thick and unnatural. Then all the lights went out. The darkness was total, consuming. Daniel reached for his phone, but the screen had shattered in his pocket. When Marlene struck a match, the flame barely reached past her hand, and in that flickering glow, she saw something behind Noah, not a shadow, a shape, tall, thread-thin limbs. Its wooden face was carved with countless mouths, each one whispering in a different voice. The puppet had grown, or maybe it had never been a puppet to begin with. "It's the hollow," Father Lenny gasped. "It's fully inside him now." Suddenly, Noah let out a scream, not human, not childlike. It cracked the air like thunder, blew out every candle, and sent Father Lenny flying back against the wall. Marlene screamed, reaching for her son, but Daniel held her back. "That's not Noah anymore." The creature moved forward, and then Noah blinked. His real eyes, just for a second, surfaced through the black. Tears rolled down his cheeks. He mouthed two words, "Help me." Daniel, without thinking, rushed forward and grabbed the puppet's arm, the only original piece left. He drove it into the fireplace and lit the flame. The house screamed, not creaked, screamed. Walls bled. Glass shattered. Noah collapsed, convulsing. The figure behind him thrashed, howling through 100 mouths. And then, silence. It was gone. Noah gasped for air. Real tears. Real voice. The thing had left him. But when the fire died down, something was still there in the ashes. A single unburned eye. Glass. Black. Staring straight up. Daniel reached for it, but Father Lenny grabbed his arm. "Don't," he said. "They always leave a way back." Noah slept in their bed that night, wrapped tightly in his mother's arms. The house was quiet, but Marlene didn't sleep, because on the baby monitor, she still heard wood creaking, and sometimes when the lights flickered, she could swear she saw the silhouette of tiny strings hanging from the ceiling.